Hello there, everyone, and welcome to my garden. Why are we in my garden? Well, our latest show was filmed before the early kick-off against Sunderland in the FA Cup last month, and so early, in fact, that I forgot to record an introduction. So here we are, we're doing it now. I was joined on the day by a good friend and our meticulous researcher and valued Heritage Society member, Jamie Yates. Jamie's been behind a few of our grave rededication projects in recent years. Some really great projects as well, and we will discuss those today with a few guys that you should know about, really. From Thomas Keates, who was our first historian. He began as a fan and an activist and became a board member, and then published Everton's first history in 1929. And we discussed George Fleming as well, who was our first goal scorer in the Football League. And significantly, with it being the FA Cup, we also have a feature on George Farmer, which I really enjoy. He's one of our real favourite players, an icon, a real footballing legend back in the 19th century is George Farmer. So that's one to look forward to near the end of the show. We finished the show with a bit of music as well, which is really nice. A friend's band named after George Farmer. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the show. The first early kick-off for us meant the first Heritage show encounter with the midday sun, casting its shadows across our set early in the day, which we didn't anticipate. So frustratingly, as a cameraman myself, I apologise for the overexposure. Later in the show, you'll see it creeping in. But yeah, it doesn't spoil the stories by any means. And yeah, I suppose the delay in me recording this intro has allowed my Goodison seat to arrive, which I'm very excited about. So while you guys enjoy the show, I'm going to go and find an obstructed view in my living room to place this behind where I can sit and boo the television from. Enjoy the show.
Marching down the Goodison Road.
One of Britain's greatest footballers.
Sharp! What a fantastic goal! And the Evertonians have gone berserk. Oh, yes, he's got it!
One Evertonian is worth 20 Liverpudlians.
Oh, it's great stuff by Everton.
Heritage.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Everton Heritage Show, brought to you by members of the official Everton FC Heritage Society. My name's Lewis Royden and I am delighted to be joined today by my good friend Jamie Yates. How are you doing, mate?
Hi Lewis, I'm okay, yeah. Battling off a bit of a cold, so I'm even more snotty than normal. But no, we're a bit dishevelled this morning, aren't we? Early kickoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know, you can't, we're doing our best, aren't we?
FA Cup early kickoffs. I mean, to be honest, if we're feeling under the weather for it, cold and getting out of bed early, we can't really complain though. Our opponents are Sunderland. They've come a long way. They must have been up since about 4 a.m.
Yep.
So I think a little bit of sympathy for those
Yeah, it's probably
guys.
even colder up there, but yeah, I got down quite early this morning. They're already walking down the Regent Road looking right up for it, so hopefully our crowd is as well.
Yeah, fingers.
It's with a good end to the week. It's been a long one being an Evertonian.
It's a tough one. Yeah, that's it. They come thick and fast, don't they? Always at the time when you've got no players left.
Yes.
And dropping like flies as well, by the sounds of it. So to get onto a bit of bit of your own background, you used to live in Scotland, and then recently you moved back to Everton. Mm-hmm. Very close to Goodison Park. Mm-hmm. So can you give us a bit of an idea about a word on what our former home means to you in that area?
Well, yeah, I've talked about it quite a lot over the years, but I was born in Everton. We moved down south when I was very little. I ended up living in Scotland. When kind of that period of my life ended, I decided finally it was time to come home. So yeah, I managed to rent a house on Winslow Street, right by the grounds. I think it was something like 300 steps to my seat in the lower Gladys.
I bet you counted as
well. I did
well.
count them, yeah, one time. I've got it written down somewhere. And that just meant the world to me as I was sort of putting my life back together kind of thing. I live just around the corner now from Goodison, really. But yeah, Goodison's just a precious place. And of course, the home of so many incredible FA Cup memories. for Everton. So it's it's great to be to have that first tingle of the FA Cup third round at Hill Dickinson, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Here's hoping. I really believe we've been so patient for years, but we need things like this. We need a few big FA Cup games. We need a derby. We need to make those memories. We haven't had the chance to do them yet. That's why it's going to take time to build. Make the new memories.
Still early days,
grounds.
isn't it? But still plenty of firsts coming thick and fast. We're making, as I always say, making history pretty much every week at the moment with all these new firsts. And we're a club of firsts. And I'm certain we'll get onto a few more of those shortly.
Let's see.
So getting onto your research, you are a meticulous researcher, aren't you? You really dive in. When you dive in, you dive all the way in, don't you?
Deep dive.
Your projects and articles are always outstanding. There's so many on the website that are just super extensive and often bring into life the stories of men who may not necessarily be known to many. You seem to have been doing quite a few things on the lads from the 19th century in particular. The lesser known names, but names that should be known. I would say. Yeah. Thomas Keates, George Farmer, to name a couple of those, which we will definitely come on to shortly. Sure. I hope, providing we've got time, because as I say, there's so much of it.
You know me, Lewis. I can talk.
That's it. Likewise. But if we kick off, as I say, with the firsts, it seems fitting that fans should know the name of the man who scored our very first league goal.
Right, yes.
So, who was he, and how did your story and your journey with the story go?
Well, just to sort of address what you were saying there, I think really in the last few years where it's been hard work being an Everton fan, hasn't it? Coping with what's gone on off the pitch, trying to back them on the pitch as they struggle to try and stay in the Premier League, and more and more I found myself burying myself in the ancient history, because you know what's going to happen at the end, So
no twists in the tail.
It's not as heartbreaking, although we've always been a club that's had ups and downs and managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and vice versa. I just love that. That's what our club was built on, so no wonder it still happens. But to answer your question, the guy who scored our very first Football League goals in the very first game on 8th of September 1888, 8th of September, my birthday, was a guy called George Fleming, and he was from Arbroath in Scotland. And he'd come down a few years beforehand. He worked in, I believe he worked in the bank on the corner of Speller Lane and County Road. He worked for the Bank of Liverpool.
Oh yeah, opposite the Royal Oak.
Yeah. And he was always an amateur player. He never became a professional. So he'd played 100-odd games as he was a kind of a right winger inside right in the old system. Goal scorer, goal creator. He'd won the Forfarshire Cup while playing for Arbroath. Came down to us. He had family here in Liverpool, actually, so it's unclear as to whether back then when he joined in, I think, was it 1887 or 86 or 87? It's unclear as to whether we went and signed him as such, or if he moved down here and had to look round to see who the local football teams were and joined Everton. That's we don't know the answer to that for sure, but he became a really, really good player for us.
Yeah, so in some of the research, for example, in the Arbroath Herald, there was no name, there was no mention of his name in terms of playing for Everton. It said he was played for Bootle, but he was for 4 years with Everton, so it seems
that's
like there's quite a lot of mystery around it. Quite a lot of digging to be done.
And I think he's just a name that's kind of slightly gone missing, really. One of our colleagues on the Heritage Society, Tony Onslow, had written a piece about George a few years ago, and I spotted a couple of things. We all find this as researchers. You can go down a rabbit hole and pick up a few bits and bobs, and sometimes you find the wrong date, or you find, and he had the birth date wrong, and I thought, well, I want to look at that because I want to figure out, I want to make sure I've got everything right with him. And part of this was based on the fact that George Fleming, like George Farmer, is buried at Anfield Cemetery. So this was I'd already done a little bit of work on him, and then I was wandering around this time last year, wandering through the cemetery, and the old gravestone of George Fleming and his family, which was already quite badly damaged, had been removed and replaced with a brand new stone,
right?
Which had his dates on and had everything, so I could confirm things from that. And I thought, I'm going to go back and dig into his life a bit more. His family must have done this, because as you know, we've done a number of these with the Heritage Society.
That wasn't one of them.
But this wasn't one of them. And I thought, hang on a minute, I wonder who his family are who are still alive who've done this, because I am very, I'm very thorough, and I'm quite good. I've found I'm quite good at tracking people down, and I hadn't so far found any living family for him. But this brand new gravestone proved to me there must be someone, because only living family can actually arrange to have something like that done, a new headstone put up. So I was back on the trail with George Fleming from there.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, he played for Arbroath and came from Arbroath, and I feel like just to nod to those guys, just in case we've got any Arbroath fans watching, they're not a super well known name, not a big team as such, no disrespect, but they do hold a record.
It's the Scottish Cup one, isn't it?
The Scottish, yeah. There's what was the score?
They beat Bonnecord 36-0
There
in the
you
Scottish
go.
Cup. So
I wish I'd made that a lot more prominent in this long list.
I think this was maybe a year or so after George had left and come down to.
It was shortly after he'd left, wasn't it? But 36-0 in the Scottish Cup, as you say, against Bonnecord. So fair dues to them. You know, they're still on the map.
Yeah,
for sure.
And they had a few cup ties. They had a famous couple of cup games in George Fleming's day, where Rangers came up to Arbroath. It's a little seaside town. The ground at Gayfield is still there, right on the seafront. It's famous for I think they're called the Arbroath Smokies. It's fish. And anyway, so they're still going strong in the lower leagues in Scotland. But Rangers came up for a big cup tie, which Arbroath amazingly, I think they fought back and won 4-3, and it was a phenomenal result. But then it got Rangers, you know, not having enough success to come for them in years to come. They complained that the Arbroath pitch was that the lines weren't drawn out properly, something like the pitch was too narrow, something like that. They appealed. The Scottish FA got together and said no, threw out the appeal. They appealed again. They threw it out again. And I think it was the third time of asking. At the last minute, they said, "Oh yeah, all right, you can replay it." And of course, Rangers won the replay, something like 7-1. But George Fleming starred in that game. When you read the report of the first game,
of course.
You know,
so they were 3-0 up, weren't they, Rangers? 3-0 up at half-time, beaten 4-3, 2 goals from Fleming in the second half, and I think he may have set one up as well.
Yeah, I'm sure he will have done, He was a real force. He was strong, fast, stocky kind of winger, like I say, could score goals, make goals. And he came down to Everton and he brought that form with him. He's one of these you look at in the history books now and it will say, George Fleming, Everton, 4 games, 2 goals. Because he only played 4 league matches, then said, you know, there's not great detail here as to whether the club tried to get him to turn professional, whether he said no. The family story is that he would always remain an amateur, and he basically, I think, prioritised his career at the bank. Of course, in those days, there was no, you know, this is the first season of professional league football. There's no
exactly.
guarantee.
I mean, you know, he's an outside or an inside right.
Yep.
In a 5-man forward line, which you can only dream of these days. You know, 5 men up front must have been wonderful to watch. Particularly, particularly as you say, the first season he featured in our first ever FA Cup campaign, and obviously the first league campaign as well. The debut coming in the 1887-88 season. It didn't end very well, did it? Because we were kicked out. We were kicked out of the cup.
Yes, our very first FA Cup run.
Fielding ineligible players, I believe.
Well, we played Bolton. Let me try and get this right off the top of my head. I think we lost the first tie, I think. But then we complained that Bolton had fielded an ineligible player, so they ordered a replay. We at the time had brought a load of players down from Scotland, and there was lots of controversy about doing this. That you weren't allowed to pay players basically, and we were bringing these Scottish guys down and saying, "Oh, he works in the pub. Oh, he's doing this. Or he just happens to play for us, you know, on a Saturday." So in the replayed game, I think the second one was a draw, so we went to a replay again. We scored our first FA Cup goal in that first draw. The first one was scored by a guy called Robert Watson, and my mate George Fleming scored the second goal. It was replayed again. Let me get this right. I think maybe another draw. I think it went to 4 games.
It did go to 4 games,
and we won in the 4th one.
Yeah.
Hooray! We're through to the next round.
Yeah.
So we draw our big rivals Preston, who are the best team in the land, in the next round. Go to Preston. We get beat 6-0.
Yeah. Well, they were the first league winners as well, weren't they?
They won the following season, the first 2 years of the league. The league seasons they won, and we were always chasing them. Bolton and Preston were our were our role models that we were trying to live up to. So we were always chasing after them. But yeah, after the 6-0 defeat, having been knocked out of the cup, we were then also expelled from the cup. Excuse me.
Yeah, indeed, and banned as well.
Yes.
Kicked out of the cup, banned for the next season.
Yeah, we had the Liverpool Senior Cup title stripped from us, and were banned from that. And we got done for fielding 7 ineligible players.
Yeah, ironically, considering we complained and asked for a replay because Bolton fielded an ineligible player. We were then banned for playing 7 ineligible players against Bolton in the replay. So, and as you say, banned from the competition, stripped of our titles.
Yeah.
So let that be a lesson to Man City fans, I think. If it can happen to us in 1887, it can happen to you. 18 goals in 26 appearances for George Fleming, including a second hat-trick in a 9-0 home win over Bury, which was a club record at the time. He also got a club record at the time, scoring in 7 successive games through February and March. And he scored a remarkable 6 goals in a 10-1 away victory at Irish club Cliftonville on the 16th of April 1888. And of course, as you said, one of the players in the very first official league season of 1888. 47 goals from 84 appearances.
Yeah, that's most of them obviously pre-football league. But I think if we're going to wear 1878 on our badge, for me, every game, even the games in Stanley Park, they all count. They're all building the legends, aren't they, and the heroes and.
Too right, absolutely, and that tally puts him third on the scoring list behind the early icons of Jack McGill and George Farmer as well.
Yep.
As you mentioned before, like his life in Everton, he didn't continue, did he, with the club, and he left, and as you say, he continued as more of a banker. I believe there was a connection as well with. The modern ground here, the Bramley more social.
Well, yeah, there is just to say an interesting thing about him, and again, sort of a sign of the times, really. So he worked in the bank. While he was a player, and for several years afterwards, he stepped down in the year we won the league in 1890-91. But he was actually on the board, basically. In some, again, it's slightly unclear in the early records, but I think you can only assume it would have been in a sort of accountancy kind of treasurer kind of role. But he actually, for the whole time he was playing, and for a few years after he stopped, he was still working for the club, so he was still
listed as on the committee.
He appears on the early, some of the early membership cards as a member of the early, the committee there, obviously in the Anfield era. But the connection to. Here, we're just over the road from Hill Dickinson, of course, comes through his wife's family. There's quite a few I've been finding from this era. Of course, there's lots of connections to the docks, to the shipbuilding. The thing with this is, so over the road from us, we've got the Bramley Social. It's the big building with the Guinness toucans flying up the side of it now. Now, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this, and I will crack it in the end. There's a very old sort of warehouse style building there, and it's either that building, if it was the original one, or a precursor of it, was a foundry, and it was owned by a man called David Crawford and his business colleagues. And I'm just going to try and find the name here of the company, because it's gone from my mind. Yeah, so a company called Railton, Campbell and Crawford, who were manufacturers of engineering parts for ships.
Right.
And right on that site of the Branley Social, they had their foundry. Now, David Crawford had a daughter called Margaret, and she married George Fleming.
Right.
So when David Crawford died, he handed the business down to his son, Margaret's brother, George Fleming's brother-in-law. He moved it to Cherry Lane, the other side of Anfield Cemetery from Goodison Park. He moved the foundry there, and they produced parts for the Titanic, several of the ships from that time. So, an incredible link to the Titanic story, basically, which, interestingly, George Fleming's teammate, also had a very close one in that his wife, his widow, later went on and worked on the White Star Line, and George Farmer's family have told me she was basically on the list to be to work as she worked as kind of a nanny or a nurse on the ships, to travel on the Titanic on its fateful trip. Wow. And at the last minute, her and her friends, who were due to travel on the train down from Liverpool, got stood down, and they didn't travel, so she survived it. But a couple of little tenuous links to the Titanic there.
It's incredible. It's nice that it all comes full circle as well, like, kind of brings home kind of how small the city was as well, or at least how active the docks were as part of that era, and again the significance of the location of where Everton have now moved to. Like it's always been such a thriving area up until kind of living memory, when it's been a little bit quieter down here, but it was never that way. Obviously we're in in warehouses that were so active back in the day,
full of Evertonians as well,
exactly,
full of
the amount of Evertonians that must have been on those ships.
Yes, the men who made it all happen by coming through the turnstiles and forcing the guys who were founding the Football League in the 1880s to say, we've got to include Everton here. They've got the biggest, loudest crowd in the country. We're going to make money out of them. Even back then it was money. You were guaranteed a percentage of the gate as the away team, and they just knew it's a no-brainer. We include Everton, we're going to make money. We're the those people were the originals, I say. Those early fans, and they're all of us who've got roots here in Liverpool. My family, my Irish ancestors who settled in Everton worked on the docks, built the railroads, the railway tracks. They were blacksmiths, and they built the railway tracks that we can now get our name put in down on the fan plazas. So we've all got a connection, haven't we? And it all ties together, whether you're red or blue or whatever. It all goes around and comes around. I just find it incredible. That's why I love it. I mean, for me, I feel like I'm on my own family journey as well, because I find little connections. I know that my family were living right there when this was happening, and they would have seen him there. They probably all went to the same pub. It blows my mind. I love it, and I never get tired of it, wandering around and seeing it.
I completely agree with you, and at the risk of kind of not wanting to butcher this story, we have our own personal connection as the Roydens as well, in terms of the room that we're in right now, where we've moved to, this the David Rollo building. Where they put the engines into the ships that were built by the Royden Shipping Yard, which is down on the south end of the docks. So that we have,
which could well have had Railton, Campbell and Crawford parts.
Exactly. Exactly. In the grand old year of 1878 as well, this place was built. So there's countless connections for all of us, and there's so many more people out there, obviously, who'll be watching, who don't even realise, their connections are here as well. To take things a little bit out of chronology here, can we just have a little bit of a focus on your work with Anfield Cemetery? Because you mentioned before the stuff with the grave restorations that the Heritage Society do, which you've been behind. And this kind of gives me an opportunity to mention when I first joined the Heritage Society, obviously kind of on the premise of making some documentaries and filming work and digital work, and of course I kind of had to cut my teeth and prove that I was able to do it. And so our first documentary was on a man named Thomas Keates, which was fabulous, and you presented for us. It was all your research. I
was the crash test dummy.
Yeah, precisely. The crash. Well, we both were in it together for sure. Which is brilliant, by the way. Not to blow our own trumpets, but if you can go and watch that, I'll put the links in the description. It's a 10-minute documentary on the life of Thomas Keates. But as I say, that did it start with the gravestone in Anfield Cemetery, or did it end with it, or both?
Well, the story of that really is I'd always, when I lived far away up in Scotland, I'd seen things like this going on, and I'd visited a couple of the graves that the Society had done up in Scotland, and I, again, ties back to my family history really. I was told many years ago by a relative that all of my dad's family, all my ancestors on that side, and I didn't really know any of them, my grandparents died very young, that they were all buried in Anfield Cemetery. So I started wandering around trying to find my family. And then someone told me, oh, but the problem is they don't have any gravestones. No one has a gravestone in our family. It's just not the done thing. Oh, brilliant, great. So even if I find them, it's going to be a patch of grass. Anyway, so I spent a lot of time wandering around Anfield Cemetery, learned how you look through the archives as well and track these things down, and very soon realised none of them are buried there. They're actually all in Everton Cemetery. So I've found them now, and sure enough, they haven't got any gravestones. So I've been to that patch of grass. But anyway, as I was pottering about in Anfield Cemetery, I spotted things like the Billy Scott grave that the Society did a few years ago. George Marn's grave is there. Several others, Tommy White, who played with Dixie Dean and so forth. And I started to think, well, there must be more. There must be more here. Of course, there's got to be. And this was during lockdown, when you were first allowed out for a wander.
Yeah. And
I had my daughter with me. I was teaching her to ride a bike, and the cemetery was great, the big wide pathways. So she's zooming about on her bike, and I'm disappearing behind a gravestone, trying to. You look up. There's a knack to it. You learn sort of the grid reference system and the numbers and things, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and make a list. This is going to be my little lockdown project. And I'd go home, do a load of research, say to my daughter, right, we're going for your next bike riding lesson. And it was actually me. And by the end of lockdown, she knew how to look for the gravestones too. So she's going, it's over here, Dad. So we found several that do have stones, like George Fleming's one, which was in really bad repair. Made a note of those and thought, I could put that forward when we're back having meetings. We could maybe, prioritise one or two of those. But I also found a lot of unmarked ones like George Farmer. And Thomas Keates, who for me, his book is just a real, without that, I call him kind of, he's sort of the godfather of Everton heritage, I think I call him in the film. Because he bothered to write that book. And when we had the service to rededicate the grave and put the new stone up with the family, I said, if he hadn't have done that, I can imagine him standing up and saying, well, someone had to write it, didn't they? You had to write that Golden Jubilee history. And all those details that he had as a fan who became a director and was always very involved. Without that record, because football books weren't really written back then. It wasn't covered in the same way. The things like the cigarette cards were starting to come out and things like that. But there's not tons of records,
Yeah, I know Preno called him the Oracle, the Oracle of Everton history. Yeah. So the book that you're mentioning, for those who don't know, we've got a copy of it on the shelf behind you there, The History of Everton Football Club, which was published in 1929?
29.
So the history up until 1928, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so much of Everton's early history is entirely owed, or our knowledge of the early history is entirely owed to this book and Thomas Keates' research.
Yeah.
And first-hand experience. Yeah, he was there the whole time, wasn't he? And as you say, as not just as a fan, but as a director and heavily involved in the club for many, many years. Yeah. Even long after he left the club, he was still an Evertonian, still went to the matches, still wrote articles for the newspaper. Yeah. But I think, again, we feature it in the documentary, don't we? But there's a great story about how he was a little bit dismayed with the running of the club in the mid 1890s. A proper activist that rallied a bunch of fans and stormed an AGM.
He did, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that story?
There was a lot of discontent. This is in the 1890s, sort of mid 1890s, if I remember right. And there was a lot of discontent that we'd ploughed a lot of money into a lot of average players who weren't pulling their weight. We'd won the league in 1891, and it had been expected we would kick on from there. And they were desperate to win the FA Cup. The FA Cup was rightly, and I'm so glad we come back round to that almost inadvertently, but it was viewed as the Premier Trophy, I think, FA Cup final day.
So it should be.
And we hadn't won it. I think we got to, was it 96 and 97? We got to the finals. We lost to Wolves and lost to Aston Villa, and the fans were starting to fume. The early days of
in the new stadium, not happy.
Yeah, we're in the new ground.
Sub-party.
Yeah, and it's not, any familiarity. Here, we'd only been in Goodison, a couple of years. Spent all that money on the new grounds, forged our own identity again. And it wasn't happening. We were treading water, And so Keats and a number of others arranged a series of meetings around Walton, Anfield, sort of in church halls and school halls and things. And the club were onto this, and it was covered in the press. And there was a lot of, what's going on here, all of these. They were all shareholders. So Keats was a shareholder from very early on. When we moved to Goodison, there was a whole new raft of shares. That was when we launched as a sort of a public company for the first time. So Keats and people like that were in on that. And they had the AGM, and he basically just got up and delivered this speech. And they call him, the writer calls him something, he says he's like a bulldog of a man with a moustache like a walrus. So, and he marches up onto the desk, onto the stage. If you go to the Picton Library now, the kids section, that is that stage. At the meeting in there, I'd love to get a load of fellas with moustaches, and go in there and recreate it. But he marches up onto the stage, and he hands over this letter he's got from a solicitor that is just to prove a particular point in amongst this big argument. And he's done this great speech. He's getting cheered, and everyone's just, absolutely up in arms. He's up on the stage, slaps this letter down in front of the chairman of Everton, picks up his glass of water, downs it, and stumps off.
Picks up the chairman's glass of water.
Yeah, just downs it and walks off, slams it down on the table and walks off, storms off the stage to tumultuous applause. I think it's great credit to the Everton board, actually. I mean, I don't know, if you're outspoken these days, you're cancelled, aren't you? 2 years later, he was on the Everton board. So there's hope for all of us, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, maybe so. I don't know whether that's the recommended course of action these days. But
he was bold.
For the anarchists amongst
and he
us,
stood
maybe
up,
it is.
He stood up like the fans have felt they've had to in recent years, and he made himself heard, and he we kind of kicked out. It took another 10 years until we actually won the FA Cup in 1906, but even back then, Evertonians were speaking up and making a noise, and we've always been that. Throughout the history, we've always been a raucous, angry crowd who demand success.
The people's club, isn't it?
The people's club in the very positive way, in a very kind of fiery kind of way.
We're
demanding, aren't we?
If Goodison's any example of it, and hopefully an angry crowd here at the Hill Dickinson at some point as well. We haven't really experienced an angry one yet.
No, that's what we need. Though,
maybe a couple.
We need all of that to happen.
So Thomas Keates died, unfortunately, in 1928. So we didn't actually get to see the publication of his own book, which is a little bit of a shame. But I was wondering that I don't actually know the date that he died. Would he have seen? Because 28, I believe, was the year we won the league.
Yep.
And famously, Dixie's 60 goals.
Yes.
So he may have seen those at least.
I think so. Let me see.
Not to put you on the spot for a specific date, but it was that year anyway that he passed away, hadn't he? And as you mentioned, like for your own, the way the project kind of came to a natural conclusion for yourself is the restoration of of Thomas Keates' grave. A beautiful service in Anfield Cemetery. Members of the club came down, and loads of and of course, as you say, the family as well.
Yeah, it was just wonderful.
Which was lovely to see.
The club's absolutely delighted with what Everton Heritage Society are doing with the grave rededications. We work very closely with the society, have done for a long time. I mean, they hold their regular meetings on our club premises in the Royal Liver buildings because we appreciate the work that they do, preserving, celebrating and cherishing the history of the football club that we all hold so dear. So this latest grave rededication is very important to us because Thomas Keates is one of the, I suppose, the unsung heroes of the Everton story. Somebody that I refer to as the original Everton oracle. I mean, so much of the information that we know about the football club, especially from the early days, from the St Domingo's days, was committed to print by him, and without him we certainly wouldn't know as much as we know now. I mean, it's that old catchphrase, isn't it? If you know your history. We're very, very proud of that catchphrase, and we know an awful lot more about our history because of the works of people like Thomas Keates. So yeah, we're delighted what the Society have done today. It's a very significant memorial, and it will be here for sort of passers-by to spot and to hopefully learn more about Everton Football Club and him.
It's all nice.
It's just an incredible day to see so many familiar Evertonian faces here, people I know, people like Sir Ken Rogers who've been heroes to me as a voracious reader of Everton books over the years, people I've looked up to and now I'm working alongside. But then to have the actual family, some actual Keats blood here, standing beside the grave, interested in it, looking at the book and interacting with people is just incredible. These people are Everton royalty to me.
So that brings us smoothly onto another grave restoration project, and the life and times of one very special man indeed, a name that we have mentioned on multiple occasions already, and I'm excited to tell the story. And I encourage you to go into more detail than I'm about to go into, but allow me to at least list the accolades of the mighty George Farmer.
Yes.
Everton's first professional signing alongside George Dobson at the dawn of professionalism. He was the first international footballer to play for Everton. He played for Wales just prior to joining us. The first Everton player selected by England as a non-playing reserve in 1887. Fourth on Everton's pre-league appearance list with 134. Second on Everton's pre-league goal scorers list, as we mentioned, with 81 goals. Joint 21st in the all-time list, if anyone's still counting. He created both goals for George Fleming, as we discussed earlier, on Everton's Football League debut. And significantly for today, the first professional player to score for Everton in an FA Cup tie in 1887. So very much a story that needs telling. I hope I haven't just covered all of your notes there straight away.
I wish I had notes. As I said to you when I got here, I'm criminally unprepared, and
it's all in your head. This is all your. By the way, can I make a point that all the notes that I have are all from your articles.
Oh well, George, like I first had a little look into the story of him several years ago, around the time I joined the Society. Then I sort of put him to one side for a while, thinking, I've got to go back to that. That looks like a good story. And after we'd done the Thomas Keates grave, just to mention, he would have been alive when we won the league in 28, old Thomas, so hopefully he did see it. It wasn't very well, but that's as he was finishing the book, so he will have seen Dixie's 60, I think, or at least been around at the time. Anyway, George,
started out in Oswestry.
Yes, so born in Oswestry, his parents were Welsh, hence he ended up getting picked for Wales, but in those days the rules and the things were kind of different. It seems clear to me he probably identified as Welsh would be the way to put it.
Was Oswestry? I know the borders moved around a lot. Was Oswestry in Wales at that time?
No. But it's been fought over for generations, and I think there probably at the time were people who said yes, it is Welsh.
Spoke Welsh.
And it's still almost contested today, I think. But it seems clear to me, really, he's always referred to as the little Welshman, It seems to me very much would have identified as a Welshman. And he got picked a couple of times for Wales. He'd also already played against Everton a few times by then and scored against us for Oswestry. I'm sure they beat us 5-2 at some point. They were a decent side. They went on a really good run. They won the Welsh Cup, so they could and still do compete in that. They played in the FA Cup. I think it's just such an amazing story, Farmer, and I could go on about it forever. And I've been going on about that I'm writing the book of him, and I am still working on it. It's just overwhelmed me, really, because the story is just so massive and so brilliant, and I'm terrified of not doing it justice, right? So I will get it done one day.
I'm sure you will
I
do
will,
it
I
justice.
promise.
There's nobody better than yourself to be honest.
And I just love it. I love the guy, and through doing the restoration of his grave, I'm sure we'll go into that in a minute. I've met lots of his family. They're just the most wonderful people. I just love them. I'm regularly in touch with all of them, and just brilliant people. And this guy is, Yeah, he's my favourite Everton player now.
That's a great claim. That's a lovely claim as well to consider.
Yeah.
It's been how many years.
He stopped
And to
playing
still
in
think-
1889.
Yeah, and can
I
still
think maybe
hold
this
his
last
own
go-
as
yeah.
amongst the
He's a
favourites
hero.
now. He was.
Yeah.
So as you say, he played for Wales, but also played for England, which
Well,
is.
he was picked.
He was picked for
he
England.
was
So
picked in those days. They'd pick a full 11 and a full 11 of reserves. He
Yeah.
had no subs, obviously, so he was twice picked. Certainly, one of them he didn't even travel. I think they played maybe at Blackburn, England,
Okay.
and he played for Everton that day. But
So
he
still
was,
not-
he was
maybe not-
definitely there. He was the reserve left winger.
Yeah, maybe not quite the crazy story that it seems
Yeah.
to be for playing for two different countries, which you
Yeah.
obviously wouldn't see now.
Yeah.
Did Charlie Parry do the same thing? Was
Parry only played for Wales, but this is interesting for nerds
This is
like
another
me.
tangent
This
here,
is
isn't it?
interesting.
Yeah. Go down
So
a rabbit
shortly
hole.
after Farmer had played his 2 games for Wales, he joined Everton, and you think, well, he'll go and play for Wales. Obviously, now he's playing for Everton. They're heading into the league. Why hasn't he got 100 caps for Wales? Shortly after he joined Everton, the rules were changed, and you could only play for the country of your birth.
Right.
So, in theory, he couldn't play for Wales anymore. He was born in Oswestry. Charlie Parry carried on playing for Wales. Charlie Parry was born in Oswestry. So it's a strange one, because in some books you'll see it says he's born in a little village in Wales, but I've got his birth certificate and he was born in Oswestry. So Charlie bent the rules for himself, I think,
Yeah.
a bit. But he was another story, but another Oswestry boy who came to Everton and had a great career. Yeah,
Prolific little town producing
Yeah.
great footballers.
yeah, beautiful town.
So back on to Farmer. He gets his first goal. Well, he had to wait a couple of games for his first Everton goal, and then 3 come along at once.
Yep.
Hat trick in a charity match versus Haydock Temperance. Some more statistics for you. In the 84-85 season, he got 8 goals, but from only 7 appearances, and then he really hit the ground running,
Yes.
didn't he? The following season, 35 goals in 43 appearances, a record which stood for 24 years until Bertie Freeman got 38 in 38 games. In which season George scored the winner in a Liverpool Senior Cup final that we mentioned earlier, the 2-1 versus Bootle. And then the following season again, another 26 goals. We retained the cup. And one of my favourite little things, that he scored 8 goals in one game, a 14-0 win over New Ferry.
Yeah.
And then another 5 versus North East Counties 11. And he wasn't even a striker, was he?
No, he wasn't. No,
Yeah.
he was. He would have probably, if they'd had numbers back then, he would probably often have worn the number 10. So again, in their 5-man forward line, he'd be sort of your inside left or outside left. He'd really, playing for Oswestry, played at that sort of inside left position. I think when he came to Everton, he'd sort of alternate between the two of them for his real glory years just before the Football League started. But then at that point, he kind of dropped back into a deeper midfield role. He was left-footed. My favourite thing is, you know what I'm going to say. He was nicknamed by the press the king of the screw shot.
Yeah.
And I wrote something for the service and stuff, and compared that, it's like bend it like Beckham, really, isn't it? He was walloping shots in from miles out, rattling crossbars. He had a goal disallowed on his debut, which was against Crewe. And we, again, it wasn't exactly in those days. We didn't go to Oswestry and say, here's 200 quid, can we have George Farmer? It's not recorded like that anyway. I think it would seem that we took him and George Dobson, a guy from Bolton, we took them on, and then professionalism still wasn't legal at that point. Now, we very likely were paying them. I think he worked for a time in one of John Holding's pubs, for a period at some point, and whether he was actually doing that job, we don't know.
Right,
but
yeah.
it wasn't until a year or so later that they would have actually turned professional, and it's believed that him and Dobson were the first ones who did. Again, it's not 100. It's not like the newspapers in those days, although they covered football, they didn't really have the gossip column kind of. Transfers weren't a thing. It was all evolving back then.
A little less high profile, I suppose.
Yeah.
I had written down there that he was a bottle washer at John Holding's brewery.
Yes,
Is that a fact?
I
or
believe
it's
so.
probably?
There's a little anecdote there about a number of Everton players getting. I don't know if it's as such that they're getting in trouble, but it's one of his teammates saying, "Oh, there were a few of us washing bottles in John Holden's brewery," and I think Farmer's named amongst them. He did a lot of different jobs. He was actually a skinner by trade, a leather worker. So that's a big job down in those days down in Oswestry. And I've been to the site of one of the yards where he quite possibly worked. Yeah. It's sort of residential now, but that was his career. But he did a lot of different jobs all through his playing career.
I might be getting this wrong. I've just had a thought. Did you ever watch the English Game? The Netflix
yes, I
series?
did. Yeah.
Wasn't there a story in that of in terms of factory workers?
Yes.
The controversy over the factory workers and are you
a
professional? Are you not? So I guess it's a similar.
Yeah. So
Fergus
Souter, the sort of star of that, him and another lad called Jimmy Love. I think they were brought down to Darwin, who were a Blackburn team, and there were 2 or 3 teams around Blackburn at the time. They were brought down you'll work in my mill, but you're actually being paid to play football for me. Souter actually played in a friendly for Everton once, and then didn't turn up for the next one, so we didn't keep him, but didn't pursue him. But probably alongside Farmer, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on a total tangent there. I just had that thought. That sounds like
you're right.
The story.
Well,
that
was right. They called it veiled professionalism and or shamateurism. So it was right. Football's a funny business and always has been. There's people finding ways to bend the rules.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Just as I say, a Netflix series there that you can go and watch based on the exact times that these guys were playing.
Yeah.
And he really was a character. There's another great newspaper article from the time. 1886, a child's kite blew onto the pitch and tangled between George Farmer's boots as he was in on goal. And I bring that up because it may possibly be akin to the famous beach ball incident between our neighbours and today's opponents on a previous visit they made to Merseyside.
Yeah, we were the first team to have a goal stopped by a child's toy. We were doing that 100 and something years before.
Another Everton first.
You think
it's never been seen before? Yeah. It's been seen.
No, I just plucked that out from somewhere. We would have been, presumably playing at Anfield there. There were stands, in our original version of the Anfield Stadium, but you had Stanley Park nearby. Who knows what actually happened? I just love the pictures you can paint in your head of these times. Can you imagine now Cristiano Ronaldo running down the wing and a kite flies in his way, tangles in his legs and he falls over? I'd love to see his face. I'm sure George Farmer got up and laughed and it was fine.
I'm sure. Those were the days.
Yeah, I love it.
And he really, if we haven't said it enough already, he was an absolute superstar, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was a wonderful, an icon. Fans would walk across the city to watch him play and even to watch him train. There's records of him, people walking up from the Dingle to make the journey to North. 7-mile journey, walking up just to come and watch him.
What role did George Farmer play then in Everton's history?
Well, I think he was a catalyst. Early days of football, it was a lot more like, certainly in England, it was a lot more like rugby. You had 11 big fellas like me charging in a line and battering the goalie out of the way. Up in Scotland, they started to develop the passing game, making the ball do the work. George Farmer played for Oswestry, a team called Oswestry White Star, which then amalgamated, became Oswestry FC. And he played 2 games, one against Queen's Park, the Great Scotland team, and one for Wales against the Scottish team, national team, containing a number of the Queen's Park players. Both those games, George's team got absolutely thrashed. However, he emerged in the reports as having stepped up to the plate and done really well in, he'd stepped up a level. And I think an argument I'm making is he learned from that, a little from that experience. He was a little guy, 5'6", and he was tricky and quick, and he could pass the ball and he could cross it. He's recorded in the history books as the first great exponent of the corner kick, the in-swinging corner. He was the king of the screw shot, which I've interpreted, bend it like Beckham, basically. He was well known for his long-range shooting and passing and creating and playing football. And at Everton, historically, as the school of science, certainly in the early days, we became a great football team. He was our first great footballer. He put feet in the stands. I don't think they had seats to put bums in those days, but he led the charge.
I'm conscious of time. We've gone through quite a few, but I've just to speed through it a little bit. George, he had 12 children by
Yes.
the time he passed away. And then there was fundraisers, wasn't there, for his wife and for the family, backed by Everton or maybe created by Everton, his former teammates and directors and things like that, going straight to the family. She seemed like a bit of a character. They offered to pay her over time, like a wage. We'll fund you, we'll fund the family, and she demanded the whole lot at once.
Yes.
Which I think gives you an idea of the attitudes.
Oh yes,
attitude of her.
an incredible woman. I've spoken to, so unbelievably, 2 of George Farmer's grandchildren are still alive, and George died in 1905. So do the maths basically, but. One of them well into his 90s, and he knew his grandmother, George's widow. She lived to a grand old age, and formidable woman by the sound of things. So they actually had 11 children, some of whom had died, but when George died and he was only 41, they had 7 living kids, and his wife was heavily pregnant with their 12th child, who was born just a few weeks later, sadly only survived for a year, and she raised the remaining children on her own. She never remarried, which was very common back then. Almost often this happened in my family. Somebody, a husband had died young, and she married a brother-in-law. That things like that. Similar to wartime. But she basically, the George Farmer Fund was set up, and bear in mind this is over 15 years since he'd last kicked a ball for Everton. And he was working at the council right up by the water tower in Everton. He was making his final job. He was making gas meters, and just a humble man, living on Belmont Road in Everton, bringing up a big family on a very meagre wage, and there was just an absolute outpouring of grief across the city. And it was actually a combination of old Everton players, George Dobson, Jack McGill, and some old Liverpool players who got together and formed a committee, and they fundraised. Everton put on a kind of like an A-team match against maybe Stockport, somebody like that. Anyway, the gate receipts went to Louisa, and they raised several £100. It would amount to a good stack of money now, and she was able to basically They said, we're going to put this in as a sort of a weekly allowance, and she said no chance. Went in front of the Everton directors, and said, no, you've raised this money for me, I need it now. They gave it to her, and she bought a shop on Oakfield Road, ran a little tobacconist from there, right by Anfield Stadium. This is just, we're over at Goodison by then, but she ran the shop there with the help of her daughter, passed the business on to her daughter, and then she went and worked on the ships, and she sailed on the Lusitania, several of the very famous ships of that era.
I've got a few of those written down. So I thought that was a really nice kind of bookend to this particular story, because of course she worked on the White Star Lines, and George, having grown up in Oswestry and playing for the Oswestry White Stars.
That's it. The White Stars are a continuing theme.
Exactly. And she worked on the Arabic as well, which was torpedoed by a German U-boat, and she survived that as well.
So she was sunk.
She survived the Titanic, but got hit by a German U-boat. As you mentioned, some of George Farmer's family are still around, and they've got pieces of memorabilia, which is incredible. And all of this can be seen in your articles on the website, efcheritagosociety.com, for everything that we've talked about today. The one of George Farmer is a staggering story, certainly one of my personal favourites. I know obviously he's one of yours as well. I wish we could dedicate an entire show just to George Farmer alone. To be honest with you, we could be here
series,
for hours. Episode 2 and 3. I think. How much time have we done? What are we on there? 51. That's all right, isn't it? We've got about 10 minutes before it becomes, multiple figures. I suppose, one thing I did want to mention, and it is very much a tangent here, but it's on the George Farmer story. We have a close friend, Martin Sullivan.
Yes, Sully.
He's a good lad, and he's a fantastic musician, massive Evertonian, and he named his band the Mighty George Farmer, didn't he? And
one of the projects that we worked on last year that I was really honoured to be a part of and to be asked to do was to film a music video about for a song named Hey Now Georgie, which is the story of George Farmer in essence. And quite often you get football songs can be a little bit cheesy or maybe just a terrace chant or something like that, but this is a proper rock and roll song about the history of an Everton legend, and the project of actually going out there and doing it and putting that piece together, I loved it because we decided to go to all of the relevant locations. Gertrude Road, which is where the family lived. The family who are there now welcomed us in. And was it your nephew who was a part of it as well?
Yeah. So he played one of the little characters. Didn't he? My two nephews, and it was Solly's mate's son, I think, who was played the Georgie character in the video, and we ended up with a kickabout on Stanley Park.
Exactly. We basically. My plan basically is to show the video at the end of the podcast. I'm going to put the music video in because it's a great song and it's such a lovely project to be a part of. So essentially, what we did was we got one of these young lads, who plays for Everton's.
Yes,
he's one of the Everton youngsters. To kind of follow the life.
He's called George.
And he's called George, exactly. So we followed Farmer's journey from number 1 Gertrude Road near Anfield, and he walks to Stanley Park onto the very grass where Farmer would have played his first game, and they have a kickabout with the band and the family and yourself. You played in that game, didn't you?
Oh, played.
Got a couple of headers. And the reason I bring it up. The first person that you see in this music video, is a gentleman reading the newspaper and reading an article on George Farmer in his Victorian home, and that man is the great-great-grandson of George Farmer. So we have the actual family members in the video as well.
Big John.
We've got everybody involved.
Yes.
Like I say, you've got your own family involved. Sully, the band.
Oh, it's just wonderful. The whole project.
I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I missed out there, but of course the pub that we filmed in was you can spot that you'll be recognised by the back of your head maybe having a Guinness with Sully in the pub where the fans will have walked from in the Dingle and where they'd have gone back to and discussed Farmers.
And George played down there for Liverpool Southend, who are one of the clubs at the south end of the city who were trying to rival Everton and Liverpool, but never quite did it. But that's where he kind of ended his football career. Sort of, he kept playing right up until just a few years before he died, and he was just beloved. The line on that I was dead set on having included on the gravestone came from a newspaper, a letter to the Liverpool Echo in about 1925. There was just a series of old-timers writing in with their memories of the early days of walking up from the Dingle to the game, walking up to George Dobson's house because he used to sell footballs and sporting gear, and you could pay him a penny to have your football pumped up, and he was captain of Everton, wow.
Brilliant.
Somebody wrote in and just said, let me get the line right. A fellow who was living in Bolton, he'd been a boyhood member of the early Everton club, possibly even a St Domingo's choir boy. Who knows? But he basically just said that George Farmer was the man that made the people come and take notice. We never looked back after he came. What an incredible testament! That he really kick-started football in this city. Without him, I don't think Everton kick on and become the team that everyone wants to go and watch and get into the league. Without Everton being successful, they don't win the league. They don't then fall out with the landlords with John Holding. They don't move to Goodison Park. Liverpool are never formed. Anyone who's a football fan with a connection to this city has got George Farmer to thank, among other people, of course. But I think he was the first football superstar here. It's all there, and I'll get it all together in a book one day and prove it. I want there to be a statue of him. I'm going to try and get a blue plaque on the house on Gertrude Road. I'm never going to shut up about George Farmer.
I don't want you to. No. I don't want you to. I'll be the first to buy the book. I'll be the first to finish the book. I can't wait. It's brilliant. So thanks very much for all of these stories. Once again, for all of these articles, and also videos as well. We've got video coverage of the grave rededications of Thomas Keates and George Farmer. It was a nice little interview that Julia Bold did with you as well on Radio
great.
Merseyside. So we've got coverage of that. That can all be found on the Everton Heritage Society YouTube page. Again, all the links will be in the descriptions and things.
And the song, get the song.
And the song,
end,
I'm going to put the song in at the end.
Cracker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Check out the mighty George Farmer.
Do you know what? Do you know what's a testament to the song is that I edited that video for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, you got to listen to the same clip again and again. I never got bored of it.
No, it's a
catchy
belter.
one.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it on that concourse over there. Boston instead
get
of
him play. Let's get Sully on playing over there and stuff.
He's a legend.
And you know what? I wanted to mention as well, just as if we haven't bigged up Sully enough. He did a few EPs for the FA Cup, and he's done an EP of like terrorist songs. They're beautiful. They're on Spotify. Again, they're the songs that I still listen to get me in the mood for going the game, which is very, very rare for football songs to be that good. So again, I'll put a link in for that as well because they're well worth it. So before we go, of course, obviously Sunderland today, our programme article. We won't. We don't have. I don't think we have time to dive into it. I think I'll do a little bit in the outro, but. They do feature Sunderland in what was dubbed the cup tie of the century. The article's written by Joe Brennan on a game in 1935.
91 years ago.
91 years ago. It was a cup fourth round replay after a 1-1 draw at Roker Park. 10 goals shared between the two of us. We got 6 of them. Dixie Dean played.
Didn't score.
Didn't score, of course.
10 goals in a game and Dixie didn't score.
Dixie didn't score. Jack Coulter got a hat-trick. Do you think we'll get a 10-goal thriller today?
I expect so, yes.
Yeah,
I think it's all signs are pointing towards absolute chaos today. It's going to be an incredible game.
6 goals.
After the last 2, it has to be an incredible game, I think.
Hat-tricks for Beto and Barry, are we thinking?
Just go for it. Chuck them all up front. 5 up front.
5 up front, couple inside left, inside right. Brilliant.
Let's see what happens.
I won't ask you for
it's
a
funny old game. You know me and predictions. I don't think it's ever worth predicting what's going to happen with Everton Football Club.
No.
Let's just watch and try and enjoy it.
Fingers crossed.
Let's see.
All right, well, enjoy the game, mate. Apologies for the low sun that's been catching you in the eye there as well. It's very cold in here, so if you can pick up the fog coming from our breath and the low sunlight. Apologies if that's affected any of the cameras, but thanks very much for coming in, mate. I've really enjoyed this, and always enjoy your articles, and I'm looking forward to the next one, whatever it may be, and go and get that book written.
Yes, thanks for having me. I will. Cheers.
You're very welcome,
to talk to you, Lewis.
Until next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
And what a period of dominance it had been for the Blues of Everton. They retained the Liverpool Senior Cup of 1887 with some marvellous football on show throughout. Spectators came from far and wide to witness the dazzling displays of their inside left, a tricky goal-scoring winger who, on the occasion of a 14-0 thrashing of New Ferry, scored no fewer than 8 goals. Dribbling without fear and blitzing opposition goalkeepers with long-range efforts, the king of the screw shot himself, the mighty George Farmer.
Gertrude Road, where the streets are blue and our history never gets old. Hey now, Georgie, son on the line. The originals, we are the pride of Merseyside. The originals from the Royal Blue Mersey.
As always, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. As I told you earlier, Jamie's research is absolutely meticulous, super in-depth, incredible stuff. And like I say, go onto the website and give a good look at those articles on all three of today's subjects, as well as many more, of course. EFCHeritageSociety.com is where you can find all of those. Any news to bring you? Well, I mean, first of all, you've got to do the housekeeping, haven't we? Please do give us a like, subscribe, give us some comments, all that kind of thing. I mean, comments should come pretty easy today if you've got any interest in the topics of those 19th century legends, some icons of the club. The fixture did not end with 10 goals today. We certainly didn't score 6. We managed to get 1. In a 1-1 draw against Sunderland. It went to penalties, and the less said about the rest, the better. We will not be in the 4th round, unfortunately. On a more positive note, this week we saw the first of our social nights. I've mentioned it a couple of times in the outros of our recent shows. Every first Thursday of the month, downstairs at the Denby Castle. It went resoundingly well this week with Rob Sawyer and Gav Buckland doing their talk on Catterick and Kendall. The following events, I should say, will be something you don't want to miss. So find tickets on the website, follow us on social media for more information, and also find us on Patreon as well. I'm trying to push people towards this platform. It is free for the time being, in the sense that all of our heritage shows and our heritage films will be on there in one place, chronologically and filed. But also it is a place where you can help support us. Donate £3, less than the price of a coffee per month, to help support the media side of the Heritage Society. Support the show, support our filmmaking, and also for that, the benefit you get is that I will be recording those social nights. So if you are one of those people around the world, perhaps, or someone who can't make it to Liverpool, or you're just busy every Thursday night, or you couldn't get tickets, whatever it may be, you will, with a bit of luck, be able to find those behind that very small paywall over on Patreon. Patreon.com/The Everton Heritage Show. It's really appreciated. Everyone who's pushed me towards doing this so far and suggested they want to help out with some donations. So thank you for the suggestion of doing it. I'm looking forward to hearing more feedback, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more from everybody. So you can find stuff on there. And anything else? I don't know. I've no idea. If there is, I've probably forgotten it. So until the next time, I think it's Leeds up next, isn't it? Towards the end of the month, and nobody likes them. So have a couple of weeks off, and we'll see you soon. All the best.